One of the common questions that I get from people is, how are you able to get so many credit cards? Does it affect your credit? And are you concerned about inquiries? Now, a couple things I wanted to lay out. So I know a lot of people probably don't know or probably only see what I've shown over the past 2 years on YouTube, but I didn't start a YouTube channel, then start getting credit cards. I had a bunch of credit cards before I started YouTube. And actually part of YouTube was just sharing my journey in terms of, some of the different data points and, going through different experiments, applying different strategies to obtain credit. And so when I started the YouTube channel, it was really just to share my data points, share some of the insights that I had going through my own personal testimonies of applying for different credits. So I didn't just get a whole bunch of credit cards over the past 2 years. I have 15 years of credit age and credit history. One thing I will say about the inquiries, right? So as a lot of you know, maybe some of you don't know, inquiries and new accounts make up the smallest component of your credit score. So overall, in the grand scheme of things, inquiries are not going to impact you as much. And actually, inquiries have the biggest impact in the short term. So within the first 12 months, inquiries are going to be more impactful. But after 25 months, inquiries fall off your credit report. So I wouldn't be too discouraged about inquiries. I know a lot of people are concerned about inquiries. You should really be concerned about the new accounts. And that's one of the limitations with personal accounts, because, when you're applying for personal credit, you can't really hide the new account. There's strategies of getting inquiries removed. And, there's some trade-offs with that as well, because nowadays some institutions will do historical snapshots of your credit. And if they see accounts and there's no corresponding inquiry within a certain time frame, that might draw a red flag. And one thing I will say, right, when it comes to inquiries affect different credit profiles differently in the eyes of the lender. Because if you have a thick credit profile with many different data points and you've been managing credit for a very long time, you can still get approvals with a lot of inquiries reporting, right? I was getting approvals with 20 inquiries on one bureau, right? Because what I would do is I would do experiments. So I would apply to things to see where they pulled from, and I would get inquiries. I was still able to get credit cards despite having lots of inquiries. And when you have a thick credit profile, when you have, many years of primary credit history, I'm not talking about having age authorized use. I'm talking about when you're a primary account holder and you have many different accounts that you've managed responsibly over a long period of time. When you're applying for new accounts, it's not going to be the same consideration versus if you have a thin credit profile. When you have a thin credit profile and you're applying for credit, that's looked at as risky because there's not enough data points to really base a decision. So when a lender sees a very thin credit profile and you have a lot of inquiries, you're seeking credit, they see that as risky behavior because you haven't yet established yourself. You haven't yet proven your credit worthiness, versus if you have a 15, 20, 25-year-old credit history and you're applying for accounts, there's enough data points on your credit profile to justify giving you that credit approval despite having a lot of inquiries, because you've managed your credit responsibly over a long period of time. Now, another reason why I'm able to get a lot of accounts, a lot of credit cards, is really the strategy, right? So there's several different strategies. And first of all, not every account, not every credit card requires a hard inquiry, right? There's certain credit cards where, for example, fintech accounts, where they're not even pulling your credit. They might do a soft pull for verification, but they're not actually doing a hard pull. So a lot of the fintech cards, the Capital on Taps, the Divvies, Brex, Torpago, all those types of business accounts, they're not pulling your credit. And then now there's certain credit cards that don't pull your credit as well. Like with Truist, right? You go through their pre-qualification, you can get multiple credit cards without a hard inquiry. Now, another strategy that allowed me to stack up my credit card accounts is with credit unions. It's called double dipping. So with a lot of credit unions, you can get multiple accounts within a 30 or 60-day period where they're only going to be pulling your credit one time. So that's one way that I was able to really stack a lot of accounts recently, I would say over the past 2 years, because let's say, for example, you go to NIHFCU, SCCU, DCU, right? They're only going to hard pull you one time within a 30-day window. So you can get a credit card, a line of credit, a loan, a car loan, whatever the case is, and they're only going to pull you once within 30 days. So that's one of the more efficient ways of getting credit cards or credit accounts and preserving the amount of increase that you're using. Whereas if you're applying to the major banks, they're going to hard pull your credit every single time you apply for something. So that's one of the efficient ways of being able to get multiple accounts without impacting your credit as much. So that's one of the strategies that I've used. It all really depends on the strategy. You know, I tell people this all the time, you know, you could have very identical credit profiles, but depending on the strategy that you use to acquire accounts, that could be the difference between you know, minimizing your inquiries versus you having a lot of inquiries. Now, I will say this, every institution has their own tolerance or what they consider having a lot of inquiries. Some institutions like BMO Harris, or even I would say American Express, they may not care about how many inquiries you have so long as you meet their underwriting criteria in terms of credit score and income. So it all depends. Now, I just wanted to make this video because I know a lot of times people, you know, are really concerned about inquiries, and that might, you know, prevent them from applying for things. But I just wanted to give you guys this context. You can minimize the amount of inquiries you have depending on the strategy that you deploy. And that's why I'm always preaching data points, right? Researching the institution before you apply, and, you know, just seeing what the requirements are before. Another way to minimize inquiries, like I said, is through research. It doesn't mean just because I have a long credit history and 800 credit scores, that doesn't mean I can keep applying for things and keep getting approved, because I don't care what your credit profile is. Eventually you will get denied. Even if you have an 800, I get denied sometimes as well. You know, I'm not perfect. So you also want to look at how many times you're applying within a short window, right? Because my rule of thumb is you're probably good for about 3 credit inquiries. Not to say that you can't get more, but I would say 3 credit inquiries per bureau within a 6-month time window. Now, have I been able to get, you know, more approvals with more than 3 inquiries in that time period? Absolutely. But I will say after that 3rd inquiry, you're kind of pushing it. That's why you hear about gardening, right? So gardening is you want to let your accounts age after a certain period before you start applying for more credit. And so, you know, once you apply a lot of these different techniques, you could really maximize the amount of credit accounts that you can get. And like I always said, you want to do your due diligence. You want to research, see what credit bureau the institution pulls from, see what FICO scoring model they use. Are they requiring proof of income? Are they sensitive to new accounts? You know, the strategy is going to be the difference between you getting approved and not getting approved. Now, the reason why I've been able to get a lot of approvals at a much higher approval rate recently is because I've done research, right? There are certain institutions I know, even despite having 800 credit scores, despite having high income, I can still get denied just based off of that institution's rules. For example, there are certain institutions where if you have too much credit, if you have too much available credit, you could still get denied. For example, First Tech, notorious for that. Certain institutions, they might look at it as like, okay, you already have, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in available credit. Why do you need additional credit from us? That's the way they might look at it. So there's a lot of different nuances when it comes to applying for different credit accounts, but I would say overall, inquiries is one component that you really don't want to put too much emphasis on. Yes, you should be cognizant of it. So yeah, there's no hard rule on, you know, how many inquiries or too many inquiries. Like I said, I have my own rule of thumb. You know, you want to minimize the inquiries within a short period of time, but it's different, like I said, when you have a long credit history versus when you have a short credit history. When you have a short credit history, having a lot of accounts or applying for a lot of accounts in a short period, when you have a thin profile, is looked at as risky. But when you have a thick profile, it's not looked at the same. That doesn't mean that you're going to get approved still, because each institution has their own threshold in terms of what they consider too many new accounts or too many inquiries. So I just wanted to put this video out there. And another thing I wanted to also put out is, you know, in terms of how I'm able to get so many accounts. As a lot of you know, I'm in the information space, and a lot of the companies, fintechs, certain institutions, they may just give me an account, give me a credit card, tell me to use it, get my feedback from it. I know I probably shouldn't be saying that, but it is the truth. In certain situations, I do get these accounts to provide user feedback. Anyways, let me know your comments, questions in the comment section below. And until next time, take it easy, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.